One morning, Barry gets ready for his graduation. After sharpening his stinger, he has breakfast with his mother, Janet, and then heads to his best friend Adam's house. Together, they make their way to the ceremony. Upon arrival, the graduates gather and receive congratulations from their teachers. At the end of the ceremony, they must quickly choose a job at Honex Industries due to the short lifespan of bees. The available positions include being a pollen jock to collect nectar, a mixer to make honey, a helmet tester, or working with the new Krellman machine, which ensures no honey is wasted. Trudy is in charge of guiding the new workers through the different job options and advises them to choose carefully since they will be in that role for life. Hearing this, the bees feel secure, except for Barry. The thought of doing the same job forever overwhelms him, especially after learning that bees never get a day off. After the talk, the young bees have a few hours to decide. As Barry and Adam walk to their car, they spot the pollen jocks, the workers who go outside the hive. Barry admires this role because it allows them to explore beyond the hive, unlike Adam, who thinks it's too risky since many never return. However, one doesn't choose to be a pollen jock. They are bred for it. Two young bees mistake Barry and Adam for pollen jocks, and the pair play along, telling fake adventure stories. When the real explorers show up, they challenge Barry to take a trip to the sunflower fields. Adam refuses, but Barry accepts. Later, Barry's father, Martin, asks his son if he has chosen his future profession. Barry responds by asking if his father ever gets bored of doing the same thing every day. He confesses that maybe working in honey production isn't for him. Hearing this, Martin gets upset. Janet arrives and the parents decide that Barry will be a mixer. While his parents celebrate the decision, Barry opts to go to bed early. The next day, Barry and Adam head to their first day of work. They must find openings for their desired jobs. Adam wants to be a Krellman and secures a spot when a bee dies. When it's Barry's turn, he suddenly runs off. Adam calls him through his antenna. Barry explains that he needs to explore the world outside the hive before committing to a lifelong job. After hanging up, he joins the group preparing to leave. After signing the risk contract, the colonel warns them that it might rain that day and reminds the pollen jocks to be cautious, as bees can't fly in the rain and must avoid dangers like humans with sodas and hungry birds. He also reinforces their #1 rule: never talk to humans. The group leaves the hive and Barry is thrilled about his first day outside. They fly among humans until they reach a garden filled with colorful flowers. The pollen jocks use their collectors to suck nectar from the flowers while also pollinating them. The more pollen, the more flowers. The more flowers, the more nectar, and the more honey the hive produces. Everyone wins. After the first collection, the group moves to another spot in the garden and Barry gets stuck on a tennis ball, mistaking it for a flower. His friends can only watch as the ball bounces around uncontrollably. Eventually, the ball flies out of the court and lands on the street, leading Barry into a car's air vent. The family inside panics and tries to get rid of him, nearly causing an accident. Shortly after, Barry escapes through the sunroof and plans to return home, but rain catches him off guard. Beaten by the water, he crashes into the window of Vanessa's apartment. Ken, her boyfriend, closes the window to keep the rain out, trapping Barry inside. He tries to escape but fails. Spotting a lamp, he flies toward it, thinking it's the sun, but miscalculates and falls into the food Vanessa has prepared for her guests. Just as they're about to squash the bee, Ken freaks out and grabs his boot to kill it. Luckily, Vanessa intervenes in time, preventing her boyfriend from harming Barry. She believes all life is valuable and uses a piece of paper to take Barry outside. Until now, Barry had only seen the hostile side of life outside the hive, but meeting Vanessa shows him that not all humans are bad or dangerous. When the rain stops, Barry remains on the windowsill, unwilling to leave without thanking Vanessa for saving him. He sneaks back inside and follows her, but doesn't know how to approach her without scaring her. When she hears him speak, Vanessa panics, breaks the dishes she was washing, and even pokes herself with a fork to check if she's dreaming. Realizing it's real, she asks how he learned to talk and offers him coffee and cake. They spend hours chatting comfortably on the terrace. Barry tells her about life in the hive and his desire to help in a different way. Vanessa understands. She reveals that despite her parents' expectations that she would become a lawyer or doctor, she always wanted to be a florist. Before leaving, Barry says goodbye and keeps some cake crumbs for later. The next day, Barry tells his friend Adam how terrifying and wonderful his encounter with humans was. He lets Adam taste a crumb of cake, which he loves, but also worries about Barry's desire to return instead of settling into a hive role. Adam warns him that humans are different and urges him to think like a bee. 3 days later, Barry still hasn't chosen a job. While reflecting on his life in a puddle of honey, his parents approach him. Tired of the pressure, Barry imagines a life with Vanessa. In his dream, they have a picnic and fly together, but Vanessa gets into an accident on a plane. Waking up startled, Barry decides to visit Vanessa at her shop. When they meet, Vanessa takes Barry to the market, where an employee tries to swat him with a newspaper. Vanessa is outraged, but fortunately Barry survives unharmed. Then Barry notices hundreds of honey jars and is shocked, wondering how they got there. Vanessa explains that humans also eat honey. Barry is furious, saying that bees don't know their honey is being sold and that it's theft. Determined to act, that night Barry sneaks into the warehouse where Hector, an employee, is unloading honey jars. Feeling Barry's presence, Hector opens a jar to lure him out and pretends to walk away. Soon Barry appears and confronts Hector, who is stunned to hear a talking bee and tries to stab him with a pin. Barry defends himself with his stinger and demands to know who supplies the honey. Hector confesses that it comes from honey farms and points to a truck headed toward the farm. Barry decides to follow it, risking his life in traffic to uncover how humans collect honey. During his journey, Barry meets Mosquito Blood, a mosquito who advises him to play dead to avoid humans who kill anything that moves. Soon, the driver turns on the windshield wipers, launching all the insects into the air. Barry lands on a giant trombone decorating the truck, where he reunites with Mosquito Blood and they become friends. Barry shares his plan to reach the farm, but the mosquito, drawn to human blood, takes off after a passing blood transport truck. Finally, Barry arrives at the farm, where he sees 2 beekeepers excited about their new smoker. They approach a hive to use it, and Barry listens as they boast about making money off the honey the bees produce. The men activate the device, and Barry watches as the toxic substance stuns the bees, making it easier to steal their honey. Barry soon discovers that this hive is just one of hundreds being exploited on the farm. The humans keep the queen hostage to control the bees and steal their honey daily to sell it. Realizing this injustice, Barry records the thefts and shows the photos to his hive, but neither his parents nor his best friend believe him, thinking the pictures are fake. His mother questions his choices, but Barry is determined to stand up for bees, remembering how hard they work. His father doubts a single bee can make a difference, but Barry is ready to sting humans where it hurts the most. Resolved to take action, Barry plans to sue humans for illegally stealing and selling their honey. His initiative gains support, and soon other bees join his protest. The media picks up on his struggle, and Barry is invited for a television interview on Hive 5. During dinner, Ken discovers that Vanessa is helping her bee friend sue humans for stealing honey. Ken is astonished to hear the bee talk. Vanessa kicks Ken out of the store, sweetens Barry's coffee with sugar, and with the bee's approval, sends the lawsuit papers to court. Weeks later, they are summoned to a hearing. Adam accompanies Barry to defend the rights of bees. Just before the trial begins, lawyer Leighton Montgomery arrives and Judge Bumbleton starts the session. The attorney for the honey companies narrates how his grandmother, born on a farm, believed that humans had the right to take advantage of all natural products. Barry counters by saying that bees make and protect their honey with their lives, and questions why some believe they have the right to take it just because the bees are smaller. He concludes by saying that he hopes when all is said and done, people understand that by taking their honey, they are not only taking everything bees have, but everything they are. At first glance, this movie seems like just a fun story about bees, but if we analyze it in more detail, we see that it actually addresses serious themes such as labor, exploitation, and the economic system we live in. Before we begin analyzing, I want to ask you to keep an open mind and listen until the end. People often think in very polarized ways. They believe that if you agree with part of something, you support it entirely, or if you criticize one aspect, you are completely against it. But that is not always the case. No human being is perfect, and therefore everything we create can be improved. Moreover, what I am trying to do here is explore some important messages that the film presents. To begin with, bees can be seen as a metaphor for humans, and in this sense, the criticism Barry raises extends to the real world and our current economic system. To understand the critique the movie presents, we first need to talk a little about the concept of alienation in labor, a central idea in Karl Marx's theory. Marx argued that in an unrestricted capitalist society, workers are alienated, that is, separated from the product of their labor. What does this mean? Essentially, when someone works under this system, what they produce does not belong to them but to those who own the means of production, such as a factory or, in this case, a honey farm. This process, according to Marx, not only deprives the worker of control over their production, but also disconnects them from their essence, their sense of purpose and satisfaction. Marx believed that one of the most fundamental impulses of human nature is to work, create, and ultimately enjoy what one has produced. The problem, according to him, is that this process is broken in an unregulated capitalist system. The worker becomes a mere cog in a larger machine, unable to see the impact or enjoy the results of their efforts. Barry took this critique to court. The bees collect and process the honey, but the benefits of that work are enjoyed by the 5 major honey companies which sell the food for their own profit. He argued that this exploitation not only deprived bees of what they had produced, but also stripped them of what they are, of what gives them purpose and a sense of achievement. It is important to highlight that Barry is not criticizing work itself, but rather the way in which bees have been forced to work under conditions that strip them of their identity and essence. This is a very powerful critique because it resonates with the experiences of many workers in real life. In reality, conditions such as long working hours, lack of recognition, repetitive and underpaid jobs, or the absence of control over the work being done can make people feel disconnected and purposeless. To address this, workplaces need to offer a more humane environment where workers can see the value of what they do, have more control over their tasks, and receive fair recognition for their efforts. Additionally, policies such as flexible work schedules, professional development opportunities, and fair wages can help restore that sense of identity and purpose that is often lost in a system that only seeks to maximize production without considering the people behind the work. Barry interrogates Klaus van der Heijn, owner of 3 companies in the honey industry, and reveals that Klaus never releases the bees he captures but keeps them locked up, and also uses the image of a bear attacking bees on his products. He then questions the artist Sting, whose name suggests a stinger but who has never stung anyone. Barry accuses Sting of using bee culture just to sell records. Finally, he interrogates Ray Liotta, a fading actor who uses his image to sell honey. Ray becomes enraged and tries to attack Barry, but the hive defends him until the judge intervenes to stop the fight. Days pass and the case remains open. During dinner, Vanessa mentions that she believes the jury is on Barry's side. Shortly after, Ken appears, tired of seeing his wife with that bee all day. He decides to get rid of Barry and follows him to the bathroom with a rolled-up magazine to attack him. After a failed attempt, he tries to burn the bee but ends up setting the bathroom on fire. Ken falls into the bathtub and, using the shower at full power, tries to push Barry into the toilet. Although he flushes, Barry evades being dragged away. Just as Ken is about to try again, Vanessa enters and asks him to leave. The next day, Vanessa and the bees return to court. Lawyer Layton has a plan to turn the jury against Barry. He invites Barry to testify and insults him to provoke him. Adam, seeing his friend attacked, becomes furious and stings the lawyer in the buttocks, who exaggerates the incident by pretending to have a severe bee allergy. Later in the hospital, Barry visits Adam, who regrets having to wear an improvised plastic prosthesis. Seeing a couple smoking by the window, Barry has an idea and tells Adam to get ready to return to court. While waiting for Barry and Vanessa, Layton asks the judge to close the case in favor of his clients, who operate legally. The lawyer, very committed to his role, uses a walker to support himself. However, just before Judge Bumbleton decides, Barry and Vanessa arrive with a smoke gun used to stun bees. Layton tries to prove that it is harmless but accidentally poisons the bees listening, and journalists capture the incident. Barry addresses the jury. Is this what nature intended for us? To become addicted to these smoke machines and work in wooden labor camps? To spend our entire lives as honey slaves for humans? Thus, Barry wins the support of the jury and the public. The judge rules in favor of the bees and closes the case. Barry and Vanessa celebrate that the bees will now own all the honey, which relieves the young bee, as his people will no longer have to work as much. However, Layton warns that Barry has severely disrupted the natural balance and will regret it. Adam listens and, concerned, reflects. For millions of years, humans and bees have shared honey, and this sudden change could bring negative consequences. In the following days, all forced labor camps are shut down and the bees are freed. Barry takes charge of returning every drop of stolen honey, including that possessed by bears. From then on, honey is banned in cosmetics and as a sweetener in beverages. With so much honey in the hives, workers must stop production for the first time in history, and everyone can take a vacation. However, without bees pollinating, flowers begin to wither and gardens start to die, forcing Vanessa to close her flower shop due to a lack of flowers. In the hive, Adam expresses his frustration. Now that the bees own all the honey, he barely started working when he had to stop, just like everyone else. He wonders what is wrong with humans liking honey since making it was exciting. The bees regained control over the honey they produced and no longer had to work under human orders, but this victory wasn't as positive as Barry had expected. With so much honey available, the bees no longer needed to keep producing it. At first glance, this might seem ideal, as if the bees had completely freed themselves from labor. However, the reality was different. The process process of working, creating, and enjoying the fruits of one's labor remained broken. Even though the bees were no longer disconnected from their honey, they were now disconnected from the act of working itself. As mentioned earlier, for bees, just like for us, work is more than just a task, it is part of their identity. Work gives them a sense of achievement, purpose, and connection with others. By eliminating the need to work, Barry inadvertently removed an essential part of what makes bees who they are. This new situation led to new problems. For example, Adam started feeling depressed. Without the structure and purpose that work provided, he felt lost. The freedom Barry fought for became a new kind of trap, this time one of inactivity, boredom, and lack of purpose. The bees who were once alienated by their exploitation were now alienated by the absence of work. Seeing the empty factory, Barry felt guilty. He visited Vanessa and confessed that he didn't understand why everyone was so unhappy after achieving their goal. Vanessa showed him the dead plants, revealing the true consequences of stopping the bees' work. She explained that not only flowers depended on them, but also fruits, vegetables, and the entire animal kingdom. Barry was stunned. Vanessa had to leave. She got into a taxi with her suitcase and told Barry she was heading to Pasadena for the last rose parade, which had been moved up because the flowers were withering. This inspired Barry to correct his mistake. He needed the help of his fellow bees to collect pollen from the roses and spread it across the state. The plan was to infiltrate the event, take over the float, and get it to Los Angeles International Airport to fly home. They packed the flowers into luggage and took off for New York. But soon after, the pilot announced a 2-hour delay, terrifying Vanessa because the flowers wouldn't survive without water that long. To solve this, Barry went to the cockpit and was shocked to see that the crew tried to remove him with a vacuum. In the chaos, the pilot and co-pilot were knocked unconscious, leaving Vanessa to take control of the plane, which was heading into a storm. Barry, using his experience, helped Vanessa, but a lightning strike hit the plane, knocking out the controls. The event was broadcast live. In a message, Barry explained that making honey is the work of many bees doing small tasks that, when done with care, add up to something enormous, more than we realize. He urged the bees to go back to doing what they do best, working together. The bees heard Barry's message and mobilized to help. The entire group of pollinators gathered beneath the plane, and at that moment Barry received a call informing him that his family was there to support him as well, which reassured him. On the runway, the rest of the hive guided the plane while Barry and Vanessa worked together to land it. After a rough landing, the next mission was to use the fallen flowers to repollinate the city. Barry received his pollen jock uniform and felt that he had finally found his place. Together, the bees restored the city's blooms and then returned to the hive to resume honey production. Weeks later, Vanessa reopened her flower shop, now also selling honey approved by the bees. Barry had corrected his mistake and the bees reintegrated into the system, but in a new way that blended different ideas, forming a system that had learned from past mistakes and made significant changes to be fairer and more balanced. Instead of returning to the old system of exploitation, the film presents a new form of organization where bees play an active and decisive role in managing their honey. This new system doesn't completely reject capitalism, nor does it blindly accept its original principles. Instead, it's a reformed model where bees control their labor and the benefits it generates while participating in a regulated market that ensures honey production remains sustainable and just. What we see at the end is a more humane economic system, one that recognizes the importance of work and the need for it to be valued and fairly rewarded. The bees continue producing honey, but now under conditions that respect their dignity and identity, free from exploitation and alienation. They now have some control over honey production, and the cycle of working, creating, and enjoying the fruits of their labor has been restored. A truly just system must be flexible, able to adapt and evolve to meet the needs of both individuals and the community as a whole. A truly just system shouldn't only focus on being more efficient or making more money, but should prioritize the well-being of everyone involved. This serves as a call to rethink how we work, how we produce, and how we can create a system that works for everyone, not just a select few. In addition to his role as a pollen jock, Barry has opened a law firm with his partner Leighton T. Montgomery to help other animals who feel they've been wronged. With the bees allowing humans to consume their honey again, there's a lot of work to be done. Barry faced an existential crisis that many of us can relate to. At first, he was terrified by the idea that the job he chose in the hive would define the rest of his life. The tasks in the hive seemed monotonous and meaningless to him, a fate he feared even more than the work itself. This situation resonates with a central theme in many people's people's lives, the search for meaning and purpose in work. We spend most of our lives working, and the thought of that work being unfulfilling is undoubtedly frightening. However, Barry's perspective on work began to change when he realized that making honey, though it might seem small and monotonous, had a significant impact. The effort of each bee contributed to something far greater than any single bee could imagine: the sustainability of the entire planet. Barry's story invites us to reflect on the idea that, like him, rather than blindly following a predetermined path without question, we should take a moment to evaluate whether the work we are doing or the options available to us truly align with a meaningful purpose for us. This reflection can lead to two important realizations. On one hand, like Barry, we might look beyond the surface and discover that our work, no matter how small it seems, is actually part of a greater purpose, one that benefits not only us but also has a positive impact on others and the world around us. This realization can deepen our connection to our work, giving us a renewed sense of purpose and satisfaction. On the other hand, we might come to the conclusion that we are investing our lives in work that feels meaningless to us, that doesn't resonate with who we are or what we want to contribute to the world. Acknowledging this can be difficult, but it is essential. If, despite all our efforts, our work still feels empty, it's likely that we're searching in the wrong place. Finding purpose isn't something that can be forced. If we don't feel it, no matter how hard we try, perhaps it's a sign that we need to look elsewhere. Explore new options as long as our circumstances allow it. This process may be challenging, but it can lead us to a place where work is not just an obligation, but a source of deep satisfaction and meaning. And that is what we call fulfillment.